Thank you. Thank you. It's a tribute to Robert Stone, who made the film, and as I have told everybody, and he managed somehow to capture the quintessential me, and I barely knew it. And we also have two of our producers in the audience, Ray Rothrock and Keith Haviland. Will you guys stand up and let everybody see you?
There you are.
There you are.
So here's how we're going to do this. I have a few questions that he's actually seen to just get us going. But I want you, the audience, to participate in asking questions. Now you have seen the movie, and there are two microphones there and there. So this is to give you time to get your questions ready, and then go to the microphones and ask your questions to him.
And let me just say one thing, since I've done this a few times. No questions are stupid, and no questions are out of order. Anything that this movie stimulated you to ask about is fine. The whole purpose of this activity was to stimulate people to think about how wonderful it is to spend a life acquiring human knowledge.
Okay, first question. So right at the beginning of the film, you talked to say you were reading at an advanced level, even as a fifth grader, which is very impressive. So, okay, what are you reading these days? What do you like to read that's really,
Okay, well, first of all, you need to know I am a complete knowledge junkie. I know every single day I'm going to learn something new, and it's going to make me happy. And my children think that my mind is a garbage pail. But I am right now in the middle of a very focused session reading all the world's great literature, again in some cases, because in my nth career, you can count however many it's going to be, I intend to write literature. My agent's not happy about that. He says, I can get you lots and lots of money if you write science fiction. What makes you think you can write great literature? I said, not sure. What made me think I could do a television show? What made me think I could write science fiction? Life is purposely made so that you can choose to have a dream and then decide to follow it. So that's what I'm doing right now.
Wonderful.
Right, the book I'm reading right now in the hotel room is I'm rereading the Alexandria Quartet by Lawrence Durrell. If you have never heard of it, it was written in the early part of the 20th century. It's 4 books about life in Alexandria seen from a different point of view. It's an investigation of modern love. Right before that, I read 3 novels by Han Yang, the Korean Nobel Prize winner. And I just love the fact that I'm going to read something, be exposed to something I haven't seen before, and it's going to thrill me.
Wonderful. All right. Since we're here at MIT, I've got to ask you. You were here at MIT, and you did three majors simultaneously. So how did your MIT education help you in your career? Or I hope it didn't hinder you, but certainly help you. Right?
Okay, I'm going to share this with my MIT audience. I made a mistake. I had an undergraduate degree that was more liberal arts than it was science. And I came here to graduate school, and I was advised to take some undergraduate courses. And I chose not to. And it was hell. Boy, did I have to work hard. But I'm going to tell you the most important lesson I learned from being at MIT, that there were other people in the world just as smart as I was. And if I were going to have a life that I would be happy, I would have to develop other skills. And one of the skills that unfortunately too many STEM types don't have is communication. If you watch the film very carefully, you may have noticed that some of my brilliant colleagues, incidentally on Viking, there were 2 Nobel Prize winners and 4 men who told me that they should have won a Nobel Prize and explained to me why. Okay? But guess who was chosen to do most of the press conferences? That strange young guy with the long hair. Why? Because the project manager said, You may not know as much as any of these people, but you know how to talk to people in a way that they will understand you. So all of you here, professors and students, do not neglect the fact that your ability to have an imprint in this world is not just because of what kind of research you can do, it's how well you can then communicate whether or not it's important.
All right, completely agree. Well, that's actually a natural lead into my next question. So you started to get into UAPs, aerial phenomena we don't understand, and you mentioned Occam's razor. So I actually often get asked this at parties when people discover I'm a professor in aerospace engineering at MIT. What do you say to people who say, have we been visited by aliens? How do you explain all these flying saucers? Do you say Occam's razor to them?
Well, not to the man on the street.
I don't think so.
Or the woman on the street. But I have had, my producers and the filmmaker have heard this story many times, but I'm going to tell it anyway because it's actually one of the outtakes that didn't make it into the show. About 12 years ago, I received a letter from imprint on the top of it, the Alien Abduction Convention. And in the letter, I was told that they would pay me a sizable sum of money if I would come to the Alien Abduction Convention as a skeptical technocrat. Wow. Who would turn something like that down? It sounded like the greatest idea I'd ever had. So I flew off to the University of Michigan. And incidentally, I had given a scientific talk there about 3 years earlier, and I'd had a good attendance, maybe 300 or 400 people. But the auditorium was full. There were 3,000 people at the Alien Abduction Convention. Well, I was fascinated. What's going to happen now? I said, so I got up. Well, I was on the stage, and there were 3 other people on the stage. One person on the far right got up. He introduced himself. He's a man in his 30s from Arizona, loved to hike in the mountains. And often when he would hike in the mountains right north of Flagstaff, the aliens would come down. They would pick him up, take him on board their ship, stick long, slender objects in all his orifices, talk to him about something or other, and then put him back down on the ground. Wow. The audience stood up and clapped. Then the next speaker was a lady in her early 40s. She lived on a farm in Maryland. Okay? And every 6 weeks on Tuesday night, the aliens came and landed in her farm, and they took her up in the flying saucer, and they stuck long, slender objects into all her orifices, and after a certain period of time, they put her back down too. Standing ovation again. I'm saying, oh my God, what in the world is going on here? The next speaker was a PhD from Harvard, a professor, who took these 2 stories and went through them step by step and presumed to compute the probability that they could possibly have made this up and be so similar. And he said it was 10 to the minus 21. And everybody stood up and hopped. And then the moderator turned to me and he said, and now we have our skeptical technocrat, engineer Gentry Lee. Hiss, boo, hiss, boo. I stood up and I said, this was absolutely fascinating. Your stories are excellent, I told the other people. I said, but I'm going to raise an issue, if you will allow me to. Don't you think it's amazing that of all the people who've been abducted by aliens, not one has ever brought back a single artifact? Not a drinking glass, not a thimble, not a pair of scissors, not a plate, absolutely nothing which we would immediately begin to reverse engineer, and we would know for sure that it was manufactured somewhere else. So I got up and I invoked Burt Lancaster from Elmer Gantry. I went like this. I said, aliens, can you hear me up there, aliens? Come get me. I will fill my pockets with your crap and you will know that you are real. That's what I say when people ask me.
That's a good answer. I'll remember that one. I actually do say Occam's razor, but then I have to explain to them what it is.
Yes, the number of people who know Occam's razor, unfortunately, is not as large as it should be, Dr.
No, that's
Hastings.
right. Yes. That's right. Since there's a number of MIT students in the audience here, what advice would you give to them now as they head out into the world and lead the next generation of achievements and accomplishments? How can they do the sort of things that you have done?
First, if you have made it to MIT, you have a gift.
That's true.
Second, that makes it more likely that you can pursue your dream than the ordinary person on the street. Third, know what you know what you don't know who knows what you don't know. Just take that mantra and go out into life. If you're going to make anything, build a business, build something that's a fantastic piece of engineering, never overestimate what you can do by yourself, and make sure that you learn how to interact with other people. History has taken engineering into a place where no solo individual, it's very, very difficult, can accomplish anything on his or her own. You must learn how to work as a team, and that requires communication. That's the advice I would give.
There we are. It's good advice. Let me ask one final question, then we'll open it up to questions from the audience. So when I knew I was going to do this with you, I went back and reread the Rama series. I'd actually read the whole thing.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, well, so I like science fiction. What can you say?
Okay, good.
So I read the whole thing again, beginning to end, all the books. There was some interesting, as you said, it was not implausible. Okay,
right.
I like that. But what struck me in it was some of the human beings were really bad people.
Yes.
I mean, and they ended up murdering other species. So what was the message here? What were you trying to say? Were you just saying this is human nature? I mean, do you remember that?
Of course, I remember that. And I have to make this comment. What would you say about how well we humans have acted as stewards of this planet? Would you give us even a C+?
Maybe a C.
I would not even give us as high as a C. I think the best you could say is C-. And what scares me the most is that if you were to have a notional plot of how many human beings it would take to basically destroy civilization as a function of time. Mm-hmm. Once upon a time, it was everybody couldn't have done it.
Yes.
We're now down, I'm afraid, to where 100 malevolent individuals could make our light bulb, remember the metaphor I was using, go out. And if you think about this, then you come up with I'm going to go all the way back to the Fermi paradox. People ask me all the time, that goes like this: do you believe that intelligence exists somewhere else? My answer is the mathematics says yes. There's just, the mathematics of 1 trillion planets in our galaxy alone is simply overwhelming. Then the question comes, where are they, as we asked right here? There are two major theories in science fiction and in science thought as to why we have not been contacted. Number one is what you saw with the lights go out. There's something about a species that reaches where you understand the electromagnetic spectrum, that the ability to do a big bad thing causes the civilization to perish. Look, if you consider us as a civilization, even if you want to go away from the electromagnetic spectrum, but just start about history and writing, we're only 6,000 years old. That's nothing. That's
yes.
a few seconds in cosmic time. The dinosaurs lasted 100 million years. That doesn't sink into people. They have no concept for how long that period of time is. What are our chances? I want to ask you this as you leave. What do you think? Will there be human beings 100,000 years from now? And what would it take for us to figure out how to do that? So, back to your question. Yes, we have some bad people. Arthur and I talked about this. He said, you've made the cosmonauts mostly pretty good, but some of them have a little shady stuff in it. But there's other human beings in there that are not people that we would like. I said, I think, back up for a moment. Arthur's Rendezvous with Rama is brilliant. It has no humans in it.
That's right.
Okay? Right. When we started out to write the trilogy series, I said, Arthur, I want to make this human. I want to stimulate the mind and the emotions at the same time. Critics knew it immediately. One critic said, my God, I knew after reading 10 pages that Arthur C. Clarke didn't write it. You're right. He didn't. I did. But the point that we wanted to make was that it is an emotional response by human beings. And I hope you all responded emotionally to some of the stuff in the movie when you think about these infinite questions. And go back to where we start from. If I did not think that there were attributes in the human species that could be preserved, I would not have had 8 children.
Okay.
I believe that this struggle between, as we say in the movie, the good in humans and the bad in humans is a never-ending task. And that those of us who see the bad and say nothing are just as bad as those who do the bad. Think about that one.
Very good. Okay.
Okay, questions?
There's microphones there. Please go to the microphone. So Joe, go to the microphone and ask the question.
This has really been wonderful. It's great to see the movie and great to hear you speak after reading some of your books and seeing your stuff. There could be another answer to the gray filter. I think one of the most important things I agree that we can do as a species, one of the most important exercises is to look for life elsewhere. It is profound. Everything you said is very true. But there's the other view. Instead of the great filter being, perhaps mankind's own demise because of our technological capability destroying us, the other possibility is that the universe is just a big probability space because the multicellular life, the probability of that occurring by itself is very, very low. It's a random walk with many, many bottlenecks. You alluded to some of them there. So perhaps this whole universe is so big for the reason, just to give us a chance to have this conversation. Life happened maybe in very, very few places. James Lovelock, your colleague on Viking, talks about that a lot in Novacine. So I wonder what you think of that view.
There is a book called Rare Earth, written by one of my colleagues, Don Brownlee, if I remember correctly. And he goes through the probability of all the events that lead to humans and says that probability is very, very low. And others have echoed the same thing. But I will point out, just as you heard in the movie, that we are earth chauvinists, we are also homocentric. And for us to assume that the only way intelligence can arise is through a process that mimics the process that causes it, is, in my opinion, narrow-minded and shallow. So that's my answer to that particular issue.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. We will see.
Yes.
I'm going to date myself by asking you this question, but I don't mind. In 1970, there was a movie called Chariots of the Gods that was by the book of a German writer that was written 2 years earlier that, to me as a child, has proven that the examples of pyramids, Nazca lines, and cave drawing persuaded me, and still does to this day, that we must have had aliens. I don't know if you're familiar with it, or
Of course I am.
Yeah, I'm familiar with it.
So I'd like to hear what you have to say about it.
Look, one can invoke any explanation one wants for anything that cannot be understood. Going back to Occam's razor, the smart use of the human mind is to invoke the least unlikely hypothesis. Now, there are all sorts of things that happen all the time that human beings do not understand. And there are people who take advantage of that and manipulate the minds of others to believe things that are not only not proven, but are not inconsistent with Occam's razor. Mm-hmm. There have been many, many people who have written books in which they contend that there are aliens. I'm going to back among us or have been here or whatever. In Cosmos, we use the phrase, extraordinary claims require extraordinary evidence. For me, just because I can't understand something does not mean it was done by some intelligence that came from somewhere else other than Earth. Can I guarantee you that the things in Chariots of the Gods and other things like we're here have nothing to do with aliens? No, I can't. But my experience with the thought processes and looking at stuff my entire life says, be careful. When you see something you don't understand, use Occam's razor and explain it, at least temporarily, using the least unlikely hypothesis. I have no problem if you wish to believe that what's in the Chariots of Gods is all stuff that comes from aliens. That's your choice.
So what is your explanation for Nazca lines?
I don't have one, but I don't have to have one any more than I have to have, what's my explanation for Betty and Barney Hill?
Okay.
And what's your explanation that everybody believes that God is up there and not somewhere else?
I think we have to move on. So John?
Thank you for being here. This was just a fascinating evening so far. Your fascination with space is abundantly clear. Is there anything equally compelling and curious to you about the undersea environment and studying the oceans as well?
Yes. Whether or not it's equal, I would have to say, since I have spent my entire life, basically exploring space. If I had spent my entire life exploring the oceans of the planet Earth, I would probably be just as passionate about them, because what's at core with me is not space. What's at core with me is the expansion of human knowledge. Now, just for those of you out there who aren't familiar with it, I want you to imagine a plot of the set of all human knowledge as a function of time. Your first thought is that it's a monotonically increasing function. Bullshit. There have been at least 3 periods of time in history when that total knowledge of all human beings has gone down. That's right. And when it goes down, it is always triggered by individuals who become groups who want to circumscribe what human beings can learn and be exposed to. So if you were to ask me, would I be equally happy about the exploration of the seas? Yes, I would be equally happy about anything that expands our understanding of who we are, where we are, and how we got here. The thing that I want to leave everybody with, though, is not everybody has that basic sensitivity. Not everybody thinks that the more we know as human beings, the better off we are. As a matter of fact, if you look carefully around you, you will find individuals who are in power even, who would like to minimize your ability to gain new knowledge. I'm not making any political comments. I'm simply making a statement.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yes.
Hello. I'm interested in what your opinion is on what you could say is maybe new age or modern science fiction, like Andy Weir, The Martian, Three-Body Problem. Obviously, science fiction has changed over time. I'm curious what your opinion is on how it's changed over time in terms of popularity in pop culture, and also what you think of the current state of.
Okay, I'm going to talk a little bit about science fiction then. Thank you for the question. The number of people in the world that read science fiction is down by more than half in the last 2 decades. I don't know if you all knew that.
Oh, I still read science fiction.
That's individuals don't count. We're talking about big numbers. Okay? And the main reason is video games. Okay? Now, I'm not taking a position. I'm not against video games. I'm just simply giving you a piece of information. There are, however, some remarkable pieces of science fiction that have been created recently. I'm going to tell you one right now. If you care anything at all about science fiction, you must go out and read this book. It's by Cixin Liu, The Three-Body Problem.
Yes.
It is the finest work of science fiction that I have read in the last decade.
Yeah, right.
All right. Now, they did make 2 miniseries about it. The book itself is all set in China, and there is a Chinese miniseries. But the one that most people here know was the one that was on Netflix, in which some of the elements of the book were retained, and some of the elements of the book, which the producers did not think were palatable in Western society, were changed. Okay? Now, for this group, I want to give you something to think about. Suppose that we received, in the three-body problem, I'm not going to spoil it for you, I'm just going to get your appetite whet. In the three-body problem, we learn that there is a civilization somewhere else that is having to leave their own planet, and they're thinking about coming to the Earth, and they are asking whether or not some Earthlings will help them come to here and live. Now, this poses the following fundamental philosophical question. Think about it. If a society has advanced to the place where they can do interstellar travel, isn't it likely that they have gotten over some of the problems that are facing us? And wouldn't it be possible that maybe they could help guide us through our issues? That's the underlying philosophy of the novel. You can see, look, Cixin Liu loves technology. Don't worry about it. Let it fly. You don't have to understand all that stuff. Just go through it and follow the story. I mean, it's just like reading Guns, Germs, and Steel. How many of you read Jared Diamond's Gun? All of you, right? Wasn't all that botany crap awful for 45 pages or so in the first, I just went right through that and went on. Okay, anyway, in the Netflix version, they made it too homocentric for me. Okay? They did not give, in my opinion, just due to those people who believe that we are on a course toward disaster as a species and could use some guidance from a civilization that's gone farther than us. Okay, so that's a good one for you to go with, okay?
Thank you.
Great, thank you. Go ahead.
So you talk very eloquently about the importance of communication, and storytelling is super important to that. So I wonder, what kind of stories do you think storytellers can be telling to maximize the chance that our light bulb stays lit longer than maybe others would have?
I was asked by a very, very smart young lady engineer who came to JPL after a PhD from MIT. And she said, what do you think that I should do to maximize what I am going to be able to do in my career? I asked her a few questions about what she had learned in her life, and she had done, I would say 90% of everything that she had learned was in mathematics and science. And I said, the first thing you need to do is activate your right brain. Start studying art, literature, music. My new ideas, when I get new ideas and come up with some sort of a eureka moment in engineering, it's because I have been exposed to people who can think outside the box, artists. I'm sorry, I love engineering, but most engineers don't feel comfortable the moment they wander outside of the arena in which they have been trained. Yeah. And so that's what I would tell you. About storytelling, learn. Learn how a painter tells a story. Learn how an author tells a story.
That's a passionate defense of our humanities requirements here for us.
That's right. That's right.
Yeah. Sally.
I guess my question is somewhat related because, I was struck in the movie by your comments about the journalists having absolutely no idea why it was important that we wanted to land on Mars, et cetera. And I guess my question is, for a place like MIT, I think we have a world around us where scientific literacy is ever decreasing. And how would you advise that we approach this? How do we do something to increase the scientific literacy of the public? What can we possibly do? When you did Cosmos, the thing was that everybody used to sit around the living room and watch TV together. Yes. A show like that would never capture the viewership today. So what can we do to move the needle on wonder and curiosity and scientific literacy?
That's a very good question, and I wish I knew the answer. But I will say the one thing that would really help would be if people who are scientists and engineers would broaden their acquaintances to include people who may not understand science and engineering and not treat them as if they are stupid, but take the time to explain things. Yeah. That I have found that when I'm around people who, I'm going to be blunt, don't even know Newton's laws of motion, that they will timidly ask me some question that deals with some issue that's scientific or technological out in the world. And when they discover that I am more than willing to try to get language that they understand to explain it, the questions really start flowing. Yeah. So the main thing that I think that we can do to increase scientific literacy is to learn how to speak the language of the scientific illiterates and bring them into our world.
Very good. Okay, David.
All right. Thanks so much, Gentry. Thanks for joining us too, Ray, and the producers. It's great. Just so inspiring. Great life story. So we're considering how to expand. Maybe we should reduce it, but now the Drake equation. And it has to be by a group of artists, designers, a few scientists and engineers we'll let in the room. So just wonder if you have any thoughts on, an additional term that we might be adding or something we should take away from the Drake equation.
Okay, thank you very much for coming.
As I listened to you, I realized I had to ask this question. You're passionate about expansion of human capabilities, the human mind, and how great it is. Yet you also have used some of the most advanced robotics machines that humans probably have developed. So I have to ask you, what is your thinking about the current focus on artificial intelligence, specifically like the amounts of money that are being spent, how it might be crowding out other things we could be doing with that money, and also how specifically these LLMs, might be, what's your opinion of what's going on right now?
I'm not going to answer the business part. I'll leave that to Ray. I'll talk simply about what I believe will be. I'm gonna play a game with everybody. I'm gonna imagine it's 2500, and we're gonna read a history book about the time that this group of people is all alive, and there will be a discussion of the advent of artificial intelligence, and it will change the way society functions. I'm going to argue without any proof that it will not change the way we live as much as social media has, as an example. And that every new development in human history has had the potential for good and the potential for bad. Artificial intelligence will be created by human beings. How it is employed and deployed will be a function of whether or not the people who are inventing it, developing it, and the leadership of the society work together to see that the good things it can do are maximized and the bad things it can do are minimized. Now, I have in my family several attorneys. If you're an attorney in the audience, please do not take what I'm about to say as being a negative statement. It is a factual statement. Those attorneys that I know well have pointed out to me that 80% of their time is taken doing nothing more than rewriting things that have been written before. AI will replace 80% of the attorneys. I'm sorry, that's just the way it will be, okay? Now, I'm going to go to medicine, all right? One of my biggest concerns about the medical field, historically, now I'm speaking as a historian, has been their inability to recognize how important massive data analysis and processing would be in doing their job. AI will make it possible for you to input whatever data you are getting and get a worldwide sweep of what the probabilities are of every possible ramification. How can anybody not think that that is a step in the right direction? Finally, there will be applications for artificial intelligence that we have only the slightest knowledge of right now. I was fortunate enough to listen to a talk by a person who works with beluga whales on how he is using AI to allow him to talk to beluga whales. The thought, if you were to ask me right now, what two things could happen in my life that would absolutely thrill me beyond any other thing, tolerance is number one. Okay, fine, that's another thing. But number two would be either contact with an extraterrestrial, as I say there, or we learn how to talk to other intelligences on this planet Earth.
Very good. Okay, Maggie.
Hello.
Hi.
Thank you for your time here and for this film, and I just appreciate getting to ask you these questions. So, I am curious, in the film you said that the most effective way to explore space is sending robots, because when we send humans to space, we need a plan to get them back home. So why do we send humans to space?
Okay, you have to realize that my primary metric for space exploration is how much knowledge is acquired. By any definition whatsoever, everyone would agree that robots per unit cost gather more scientific knowledge than human beings do. I have never ever, and people have misquoted me, been against human exploration. I have simply said that we should balance the two, and that human exploration is not about acquiring new knowledge. It's about striking a resonant chord in other human beings, most of whom cannot. You remember the piece in the movie where I said, I have been there, I have been in space? I feel that. I mean, the software in that computer on the ground on Mars, I was part of the design of it. I know what it's doing. That's from here. Yeah. So, in the best of all possible worlds, to quote Dr. Pangloss from Candide, that's a tongue-in-cheek comment, some of you are laughing. Anyway, we would all have enough scientific literacy to be able to appreciate what robotic missions can do. It's not true. So if I were to lay out a balanced exploration of space program, it would have a major component that's simply robotic exploration to gather science, and it would have another component for sending human beings to address issues raised by the robots that they couldn't possibly figure out. Okay? But if I don't upset anybody too much, in my fiction, there is not a single nation that explores space. It is the human species, and it is a consortium of all nations, because what we do in acquiring human knowledge does not belong to a country. It belongs to a species.
So I got to tell you, Gentry, when I was department head, most of the undergraduates who entered the AeroAstro department, I don't know what it's like when you were there. If you asked, do you want to be an astronaut? They all put up their hands. That's what they want to do. That's what motivates them to come in. Okay.
I never wanted to be an astronaut.
Okay. Right.
Hi. Yeah, one of the most interesting parts of the film that I thought was how excited you were. I think you mentioned that you were super excited to meet alien life or get some sort of form. And I think that's very interesting because it deviates a lot from pop culture and that they're scared. And especially in the third body problem with the theory of the dark forest. And that, if we send out a signal, we almost ensure a destruction. And I guess I'm curious as to why. Like, are you scared at all, or are you driven by your, as you say, lust of knowledge?
Oh, I wish that I had recordings of the conversations that Arthur and I had on this subject. And I'm now going to share some conclusions with you. First of all, if we encounter an alien species, it does not matter if they are malevolent or benevolent. The moment that we have contact with them, all human history will be altered forever.
That's right, yes.
Okay? And for those of you who don't believe this, read The Conquest of New Spain by Bernal Diaz, who was with Cortez when they moved into Mexico. There's not any question about it at all. Just for those of you who don't know. If you look at the history of the universe, the first stars and planets, make that all that 13.81 billion years, let's find a reference that we all agree with, like we did in Cosmos, the cosmic calendar. Let's just make it 1 year. The Big Bang occurred on January the 1st, all right? By March, there were planets and stars and galaxies. Our solar system did not even begin to form until September. You got all that? Okay. Human beings didn't rise up until, the dinosaurs were in control of the Christmas holidays, and human beings didn't even come about until December the 31st. And our entire history that starts in Sumer is the last part of a second. We have only been here for that long a period of time. So, here's the point. Any advanced extraterrestrial civilization that formed around March, let's even say they formed in the summertime. I don't care when it was. Track how our technological capability has expanded as a function of time, and place that on that extraterrestrial civilization, and then you understand what I'm saying. It will not matter if they're malevolent or benevolent, the same result will come. So, am I afraid? No. Let me tell you what I'm more afraid of. I'm more afraid that our light bulb is not going to last long enough for us to really fully reach our potential as a species. We are an incredible miracle that we can postulate the origin and evolution of the universe We're just chemicals risen to consciousness after all this time. It's a miracle of the first order, and we should not give up. But I worry, if you were to ask me, are you more afraid that humans will destroy themselves or that aliens will come and destroy us? It's A.
Very good.
Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you so much. I had a conversation with MIT alum Michael Fink a few years ago. He recommended to me, I'm in the architecture industry, to look at the design of settlements and communities on Mars. I'm curious now, after hearing all this, do we think that is a wise use of resources and time, or should we look at alternative approaches to...
Okay, if you're talking about should we think about it, I have no problem with that. But I'm an engineer, and I know how much things cost, okay?
Yep.
The difficulty of having a human colony on Mars that was self-sufficient is if you start going through the engineering necessary to do that, my estimate is that the minimal cost is $500 billion. And I think we have bigger issues to deal with on this planet Earth for which $500 billion would be more useful. But if you want to do a paper study, go ahead, have fun.
All right. So I think this is the final question now.
So off the beaten path, do you think the Los Angeles Dodgers will win their third World Series in a row?
All right, I'm a probabilist. For those of you who don't know this, my main academic work, this is MIT, so I can say it was in probability and statistics. I still think that anybody who works in engineering and does not have solid grounding in probability and statistics is in the wrong field.
Yeah, agreed.
Okay?
Agreed.
So I assume that anybody that's at MIT getting any kind of an engineering degree must take probability and statistics. Now, to answer your question, the only way I can imagine that the Dodgers don't win again is a series of injuries that take out. If you were simply to ask the question, what's the talent coefficient in the major leagues today? And I'm not saying I necessarily even like it. There's no question the Dodgers are way, way ahead of everybody. But they might not win. And that's what makes the game so exciting. I have to tell you, the World Series, I was thrilled. I was thrilled that it was competitive. I was thrilled that the little guy, I mean, I know you don't think of the Toronto Blue Jays, that the little guy almost did it. Even though I'm a Dodger fan, I just so love the game, as you saw from the movie. But yes, I think they will probably win again. Okay, thank you all. It was a great night.